Hello and welcome, this is Sam from Sam Studios, and today I'll be showing you how to create stylized Wind Waker water in Blender. This is a tutorial that is aimed towards beginners. You're going to notice, don't be intimidated about what you're seeing here with the shader nodes. By the end of this video, you will be understanding what these shader nodes do, from the Voronoi texture to the color ramp to the value, and how to also automatically create animation. You're going to notice it's much simpler than it seems, and my goal is that by the end of this video, you'll be able to create this effect on your own in Blender, and you'll be even able to create your own version of the Wind Waker water effect in Blender. So without further ado, let's get into it. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm just going to be enabling my screencast keys. So essentially, whenever I type in any kind of shortcut, you can see them directly. They'll always appear automatically on the lower left hand corner, so you don't have to be confused with which shortcuts I am using. Another thing that is very important to do is always make sure that your Node Wrangler add-on is enabled, because we're going to be working a lot in the shader editor. This is where we'll be doing most of our work. So make sure to have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. So to do that, click on Edit here, go down to Preferences, and then under the add-on subsection here, type in Node Wrangler like this, and then just make sure that the box is enabled. This is a free add-on. It is packaged in Blender. There are no extra downloads to do or anything like that. It's packaged in the normal version of Blender, but it is important to just have it enabled. And as we'll be working towards or in the shader editor, you'll understand why. So very important to do that. So now we're ready and set to go to create water shader in Blender. So what we're going to do, first of all, we don't need a cube, so I'm going to delete the cube and just simply add a mesh. Add a plane mesh right here. Something very simple to work on. And what we're going to do now is we're going to split our viewport into two. So we have the viewport here, and then we're just going to separate that into two. And here I'm going to put in open up my shader editor. So I clicked here. This is what you should be having, the viewport. Click here on the editor type and switch to shader editor, because I want to be able to work in the shader editor and view the effects that I'm creating at the same time. So you'll see this is a very simple effect. If you've done stylized effects in the past before, if you've watched some of my older tutorials, you're going to see that this one isn't too complicated, but that's the point. It's to be able to help newcomers into Blender, have an introduction to stylized VFX. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch. Right now we're in solid view. We want to go into material preview. Very important. And we're going to assign our plane here a material. There we go. I'm just going to change the name material to water. I think it's always a good habit to just give names to our meshes or tutorials. Even here, I'm going to press F2 and change the object name. So we're going to go from plane to water as well. I'm going to delete the principled BSDF, and instead I'm going to add in an emission shader. So we're going to put the emission shader here. And the reason why I'm doing this, just to quickly explain what I'm doing, is that the principled BSDF comes packed in with a lot of different features. You can play with the metallic effect, the roughness effect, so how shiny it is and all that. And for the moment, it's not necessary for the purposes. See, so I'm playing with the metallic here, base color and everything. You can play with the subsurface and so on. It's not necessary for the water right now. Most of the stylized effects that I work in will not be with the principled BSDF, but rather with the emission shader. One more thing that I want to do very quickly is I want to change, if I go into my render properties here on the left side, I want to switch from cycles to Eevee, because again, when it comes to stylized VFX, we very rarely use cycles. I'd say 99.9% of the time we use the Eevee render engine. And what I want to do as well is scroll all the way down to my render properties, go into color management, and switch the view here from filmic to standard. And what it does essentially is that the colors become much more vibrant. So I'll give you a quick example. Let's say we go into blue here. So the material, I give it a blue color. This is standard, this is filmic. You can notice that the colors are a bit more muted. And the reason for that is because Filmic takes into consideration realistic graphics a little bit more. But what we're doing, again, we're doing stylized. With stylized, you typically want to play with more vibrant colors, colors that are more, that stand out a little more. So instead of Filmic, we're going to change to standard. And there we go. So I'm going to put this back to white. And this plane will essentially be our plane of water. What we're going to do first of all is I'm going to press Shift A, search, and we're going to begin with a Voronoi texture node. And we're pretty much going to create every layer of our, here of our water with the Voronoi texture node. It's a very powerful node, and we can do many things with it. And I'll show you today how we can use it to create windbreaker water. So we have the Voronoi texture, and then if I press Ctrl+T, I have the texture, coordinate, and mapping nodes automatically added here. And if you don't have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, you will not be able to do that. The texture coordinate tells Blender which kind of coordinate system to use in order to manipulate the Voronoi texture, which I'll show you in a moment. The mapping node allows us to control the coordinates, location, rotation, and scale values. So these two are a very special combination that go with most texture nodes. If you don't have the Node Wrangler add-on and you press Ctrl+T, nothing will happen, but that's why it's important to have that. So you just press Ctrl+T and you're going to have your texture coordinate mapping nodes added in automatically instead of searching them in the menu here. So what we want to do as well is I'm going to use color and add to it a color ramp node, just like that. Make them a little straighter like this. And then if I do Control plus Shift plus left click on my node, I can see an immediate preview here of what I'm doing. So what I'm seeing now is essentially the color ramp, the texture coordinate mapping, Voronoi texture, and color ramp nodes all together. And this is the effect I have so far. What I want to do is I don't want to put just a plain, I don't want to put just like a plain blue color for the water. I want to give it a bit more variety. So what I'll be doing instead is, if I plug the color ramp into the emission, is I'll use a Voronoi texture. I'll switch from F1 to smooth F1. And then here what I'm going to do is take the white, put in maybe like a light blue, take the black slider, and put in a bit of a darker blue. Just like that. Because typically when you look at ocean, pictures of water in the ocean, it's never one flat color. There's always a bit of variety because you have different depths within the water. So we want to create a little bit of that illusion. So I'm just going to do here. And I'm going to add a third slider by clicking on the plus sign here. And I'm going to add in a middle color here, just like that. And I can change the interpolation to ease, maybe B-spline I like. I can press here to remove the overlays, so like the grid, the axes, the cursor here. If I just press here, show overlays, it disappears. And there we go. I can see it here, and I can play with the scale, right? So I don't want the scale to be too small. It doesn't look like an ocean floor anymore. But if I play it up a bit, just like this, I want a little bit of variation, not too much either. And so far this looks good to me. I would strongly recommend that you play with your what works for you. But to me right now these colors work. We'll check them out a little bit later. So what I'm going to do is select this entire group of nodes, and I'm going to press F, and then it groups them, and then I can give that group a name, a node label, and I'm going to call this color in all caps. So now I know that this is the node group that controls the color of that effect. And what I can also do, if I go, I think to, let me see here. Okay, if I go to node here, so in order to have this menu here, I just press N, and the node menu shows up here. If I click on the node here, I think if I enable color, I can give it a color. So maybe we can give it a blue color. So from the get-go, you know that this is the color node group. What we're going to do right now is we want to create these iconic foam waves that we see in the Wind Waker, that creates the Wind Waker effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to press Shift A, and we're going to add another Vernoid texture, and press N to hide the menu here. I don't need that anymore. I'm going to switch it from F1 to smooth F1, and then I'm going to click on the Vernoid texture here, press Shift D, Y, just to move it exactly on the Y axis straight up like this. And this one I'm going to switch to F1. The first thing that I want to do very quickly is, let's see here, where it says distance, we're going to connect that to, a color ramp right here. I'm going to shift click. This is the effect that we have so far. And then I'm going to duplicate the color ramp node here and connect it to the Vernoid texture right here. Okay, this is what we should be getting here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add in a math node. So if you press Shift A and type in math, we're going to add it here. We're given an option to put in 2 different values, and what we're going to do is we're going to subtract both of these values here. So from add, we're going to switch to subtract, and then we're going to put the first color ramp in here, the second color ramp in the bottom socket, shift click on subtract, and this is what we see so far. This is what we're seeing. Okay, not sure if I like what if I remove those color ramps. Nope, doesn't change much. Okay. And now what we could do is maybe add a third color ramp here where it says subtract, and we can play with the colors here. And just like that, if I play with the color ramp values here, I can play with how thick I want the foam to be. Okay, I like what I see so far. I would like to take just a quick moment and explain exactly what it is that I've done. So I've added a Vernoid texture, which I set to smooth F1, and then I've duplicated it with the exact same settings up here, but I kept it to regular F1. And as you can see, the effects are very similar, but also very different, because on the regular F1, you can see these harsh lines that creates these cell patterns. What the color ramp does is, right now it does nothing as much, but it allows us to control the black and white values to create, to be able to modify the effect that we're doing. That's the goal of the color ramp, right? If I go here and I move the black slider up, then black takes most of the pattern. If I move white, then white will take most of the pattern. What I've done here with the subtract is, what subtract says, well, I want to subtract this node group from this node group, and this is my final result from subtracting the black and white values from here to the black and white values from here. When I subtract them, this is the result that I get. And what I've done by adding a third color ramp is it allows me to have further control over what I've done here with the white foam, where I can play essentially with how white or how bright it is, and also by playing with the black value, I can make those white foam either thicker or thinner, just like that. Now you don't want them to be too thin, because then you lose the foam, but you just want them, something along these lines. And I can play with the weight here. There we go. I'm liking what I see. Something that I can do is I want to scale this down maybe a little bit, or maybe I want to scale it up. But the problem is you have to make sure that if both scale values aren't the same, so for example, the scale value here is 5, the bottom one has to be 5 as well for it to work, or else you have an offset and your subtract gets lost. So in order not to make them what I can do is maybe change this to 10 and then change this to 10 as well, and I'm back at my regular result. But that's a little bothersome. So something that I can do to switch both scale values at the same time is add a value node. So if I press Shift A and type in value, right now it's currently set to 0. I'm going to set it to 5. And I'm going to connect it to both the scale here and the scale on the bottom row node texture. And now I'm scaling everything at the same time because they both borrow the same value from the value node here. And also I can make either bigger foam or smaller foam. It depends on the kind of scene that you want to create. Right now, if I put maybe, I think maybe 4.2 works, not too bad. I can play with this here a little more. There we go. And now what we want to do is we want to be able to mix in both of these node groups, so the color and the foam together. So what we can do in order to do this is we have a node that is called the mix color node. I'll plug it here between the first colored color ramp and the emission. It'll be connected to the socket number A. What I'll do is take the color ramp, which is the final node of our foam setup, and connect it to the B socket. And now if I shift click on mix, this is what I get. And you can see we're getting closer to to the effect that we want. The factor is currently set to 0.5 and the blend mode is set to mix. So what we're saying is if I put the factor all the way down to 0, then the mix color node will favor the A socket completely, and we're just going to get this result and completely ignore the bottom result of the foam. But if I put the factor all the way up to 1, then we're doing the opposite. We're ignoring the color node group and completely favoring the bottom node group, which I can actually join together by pressing F and calling it foam. There we go. We can even give it a bit of color. Something maybe if I put white, there we go. Something along these lines. Okay. But I want to also change the blend mode. Different blend modes will give you different results. So we can see, for example, if you go to, let's say, multiply, you're multiplying the values. So anything that is, so for example, black is a value of 0. Whatever you multiply by 0 comes back to 0. So you come back to black. Whatever is multiplied by any other color will remain the same. So what we're doing essentially is we're playing with different blend modes to see what kind of effect we want to get. And I'm just verifying here. All that I'm doing is I'm pressing Control, and with my scroll wheel, I'm going through the different options to see what kind of effect do I want to create. To be honest, the best ones were around lighten. We have screen, we have color dodge, we have add, overlay. No, it's not too much. We want the foam to remain white, so maybe screen. Screen seems to be good, like this here. But one thing you want to keep in mind is that the water effect in Wind Waker is very toon-like, meaning there isn't a lot of that. What we can see here, this gradient that we want to skip. So what I could do is where it says linear, I can switch that up to constant, and then there we go. When I switch it up to constant, what I'm currently getting is very much, it's either white or it's nothing. There's no gradient essentially. And this is a bit more faithful to the Skyward Sword color. There we go. And we can always play with these here, with these color ramp settings here to get the effect that we want. And one thing that I want to say is you don't have to necessarily immediately, copy my exact values. For me, for example, I put in value of 4.2. But maybe you want more, maybe you want less. It really depends on the scene you're doing. Even the blue, typically, if I remember correctly, the blue ocean in Wind Waker is a bit of a deeper blue. This looks more like a pond or a river kind of color where it's not too deep. But if you want, you can, make it a bit of a darker blue if you want, or, it's all up to you, essentially, what you would prefer. Something maybe a little bit more like this. So always feel free to play with the settings in order to get something that you want. So far I like what I'm seeing. but it's very static. I would like it to be animated. The way to create animation with in the shader nodes is by creating, one way actually is by doing distortion, and I want to show you this trick right now. What I want to do is go back to the foam group here. I'm going to click on the first Voronoi texture. I'm going to press Control T, and I don't know why I put it all the way there, but now we got ourselves our texture, coordinate, and mapping nodes. One thing I want to do is select the mapping node vector here and also connect it to the bottom Voronoi texture, because if I move something, I want it, you know, to move uniformly. If I just have it connected to one, then it creates this weird effect, which we don't want. So both, same thing as the value node here, we need both to be you know, connected together, so one value affects both nodes, not just one. Okay, so we got this set up here. One thing that I'm also currently thinking about is, okay, we'll get to that later actually. We'll do one thing at a time. So what we're gonna do currently is create the animation. So what I'll do is I'm gonna add a noise texture right here. I'm gonna connect its color socket to a color ramp. There we go. And then the color ramp I will plug into the scale value. And off the bat, you can see it's completely distorted. It doesn't look like water anymore, or like Wind Waker foam. No problem. I'm going to explain quickly what is creating this distortion. So Control Shift click on the color ramp here. This is our noise texture. And this is the color ramp node that allows us to control the pattern and the values. What we're doing is we're using these grayscale black and white values to affect the scale of our Voronoi textures, and by doing so, we're affecting the distortion. The bigger the contrast between black and white, the more distortion there is. The lower the contrast between black and white, so meaning, let's say instead of black and white, we have very, very light gray and white, the smaller the distortion. And I'll show you that right now. So let's go back to here. And if I take the black slider of my noise texture and pull it up all the way to white, we have no more distortion. If I put it a little bit towards a very light gray, we get a little bit of distortion. And that's what we're aiming for. We just want enough distortion to, you know, create a little bit of distortion, but without completely affecting what we're doing, the effect that we're doing with the foam. So if I put all the way to black, it's too distorted, but if I put just up here to something like this, this is okay by me. And then there's more that you can do if you play with the noise texture. If you play with the noise texture nodes settings, you can affect the texture even more. And I really encourage you to play with these settings and see really what works for you, because there's no right or wrong answer. It all depends on what you want. We can, for example, add a bit of distortion. We can add a bit of linearity. We can add more details or less details. We can play with the scale of the noise. So it all depends up to you. But me, what I'm looking for is something that is more low-key, something that when it distorts, it doesn't really create too much distortion that is too distracting, something that's just very simple. And we're going to do a test right now to see if what I want corresponds to the settings that I have here. So what I'm going to do is switch from 3D to 4D. Why am I doing this? Is because if you notice here, the W factor appears. If I go back to 3D, there's no W factor. If I go from 3D to 4D, we're back with the W factor. What is the W factor? The W just allows us to randomly generate an animation with the noise over time. And this is what we're getting. So as you can see, we've created some sort of animation. But the problem is it's not automated. I'm the one playing with the slider. I want it to be automatically animated over time. How do I do that? Very simple. Click on the W factor, and we're going to put a little code line that'll automatically create automatic animation. So what we're going to do is we're going to do hashtag frame / let's see, I'm going to put a number, a value, let's say maybe 48, and press enter. Automatically your W factor becomes purple. Purple means that there's currently a drive in your W slider here. So it's automatically animated. So if I do play, as you can see, now it looks like the water is animated. But the problem that I have, it feels a little too fast for my liking. For you, that might be perfect speed. For me, it's a little too fast, so I'm going to pause. And what I'm going to do is, in order to slow it down, I need to give it a larger number. So if you want this to be faster, put a lower number. Let's say 12 or 6 or even 1. It becomes faster. If I want it to be slower, I'll give it a higher number. So if I have 48, let me try 96. Let me slow it down by double. Let me play it. That's a little better for me. I can play with the scale. So if I play, see? If I scale the noise too much, it's weird. So, all right, maybe 1.5. This looks good to me. There we go. So now what you got is you got yourself automatic animation for your Wind Waker water. And if you want, you can also, let's say you want the water to move one way or the other, or rotation feels a little weird. But let's say, for example, location, you want it to move from, I don't know, let's say from right to left. Then you can do the exact same thing that we've done here for W. So go, for example, to your mapping nodes, X location here. This is the one for those foam Voronoi texture nodes. And put in hashtag frame / let's say -48, because we want it to move in the other direction. Or in that case, I guess 48. And it moves in the other direction. Not too bad, but a little too fast. Again, let me try 144. I don't know. There we go. Now it's a little slower. I want it even slower, to be honest. So let's say /256. There we go. Something slow, nice, and relaxed, just like that. What we could also do is animate the water underneath to have a very similar kind of movement, because water moves. So that gradient in water from light blue to deeper blue, I want that to move a little bit just as well. So what can we do? I'm going to press pause for a moment. We're going to go to our color node group here, where it says Voronoi texture. We're going to do the same thing as the noise texture. We're going to switch from 3D to 4D. What happens if I play with my W? See, we're creating automatic animation as well. For this, I want something extremely slow. So what I'm going to do is put in, again, hashtag frame / maybe 500. Okay, there we go. See, something slow, you know, because you're supposed to be animating an ocean. Ocean water moves kind of slow on a normal day. So this is what I'm getting right now. This is nice. Okay. So this is the Wind Waker water in Blender. Something that I'd like to try is maybe create like a little shadow for the white foam. Let me see if we can get this done. So I'm going to select everything that I have here, all of the foam nodes, just the foam nodes only. Shift D, and I'm going to duplicate this below, just like that. And I'm going to change the name, if I press F2, from foam to foam shadow. And what we're going to do is, we're going to, where it says screen, I'm going to take this, connect it after the other mixed color screen node here, and I'm going to connect the color ramp node of that node, of the shadow node group here. And so far, what do we got? Everything's the same, sort of, because this one, when we duplicated, we lost the the drive that animated it. Gets lost when we duplicate, but no problem. I want to try something. What if instead of white, I put a bit of see, just like that. all I'm doing is changing the white to a bit of a lighter, more of a darker gray maybe, and it creates some kind of a shadow, which I like. And I give it color, yeah, a little bit, maybe like a bit of a blue like this. Okay, and what we can do is, if we go here, put its mapping location down to 0 to match it exactly. This is frame 256. Here what we could do is maybe frame 300. Maybe, so if we do hashtag frame /300, because we want to create a bit of, see, because it's moving faster, the white should be moving faster than the shadow, just a little bit. It's a little weird. Maybe instead of maybe 260, something along these lines. And just like that, you're creating a bit of a shadow here. There we go. And we're also, this is, if let me try, if I right click and select copy driver, I'm going to paste the driver here on the new W for the noise texture. And now this should be automatically, there we go. But what I want to do is maybe change this back to 300. There we go. Maybe 300 is a little too much. Again, play with the settings. There's never a right or wrong answer. It's really just up to you to see what feels right. And boom, just like that, we got some Wind Waker water right here. See, this is a very simple stylized effect to do. It might seem like a lot. Again, these nodes might seem like a lot, but once you understand a little bit how these, I'm just making it a little darker gray to signify its shadow. Once you understand what these nodes do and what you can do with them, it feels like sky's the limit in terms of what kind of effects you want to do. And this is how easily you can create pretty much Wind Waker water in Blender. The last thing that I want to do very quickly, I just want to try something. This is a little experiment. You can keep watching, or if this is where all you needed to know, you can stop here. But we can play with the randomness value. So I'm going to change 4.2 to 1 with the randomness value. And what this does is, if I bring it down to 0, we get every cell is exactly the same. But if you bring it up to 1, then it's completely random. And so I just wanted to try and see if we play with, let's see here, 0.530, the same thing like this here. So I'm just experimenting and seeing what works with me and what doesn't, essentially. Okay, this is constant too. Okay, there we go. Actually, I think I'm going to put the randomness all the way back to 1. I don't think that's necessary. So see, we're experimenting. I give it a try if I just reduce the randomness just a little bit, but it feels wrong. I think when you have randomness put all the way up to 1, it's better because then you get more random shapes. And there you go. This is how you create Wind Waker water in Blender. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I will get to them as fast as possible. Also, if you ever have any requests for any kind of special effects that you can create in Blender, whether it's from a video game or a movie or an anime or anywhere, let me know in the comment section below. I'll make sure to consider it as my next tutorial here on YouTube. So I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.